Welcome to Storycomic Presents, where we interview amazing storytellers and artists. This is episode 383. I'm your host, Barney Smith of Storycomic.com, and we're honored to have with us the highly talented and internationally recognized writer and director, Michael Potter. Michael.
Hello. Hi.
How's it going?
Nice to meet you. Good. It's been a great, busy summer.
See, that's right. And you're talking to us. It's like you're in Canada, but you're in the part of Canada that is still south of most Americans, correct? For those that want, you're basically right next to Detroit, correct?
Yeah, people here in Windsor, Canada, we basically, we treat Detroit as an extension of Windsor, and people in Detroit basically do the same. There's a lot of cross-border traffic every day. A lot of people live in Windsor, work in Detroit, or vice versa. So we basically all consider ourselves one community.
You're like, you're way south. You're like the southernmost part of you can get in Canada.
Yeah. It's we call it the Canadian tropics. This is where you want to go if you're trying to escape winter. It's why I moved here. It's one of the reasons I moved here.
That's right. It's as far south as you can get here and still have like socialized healthcare, which is amazing. So yeah. Before I get to the meat of the show, how was it being right there on the border during COVID, where they shut down the international borders? How was life for you during that time?
Yeah, it was. I think as for people around the world, it was a very, very odd and stressful time. It really, affected Windsor quite a lot, and Detroit, because this is the busiest. What do you call it? Not port, but we have the most traffic between our two countries right here between Windsor and Detroit. So this is where all the the big trucks come through, all those convoys that bring goods back and forth, raw materials back and forth. So that a lot of that stopped, and so supermarkets became empty, things like that, and a lot of people, as I mentioned before, live here but work in Detroit and vice versa. So they had to get special exemptions if they wanted to go to work, especially if they were considered essential workers, right? So I know a lot of nurses, and they had to get special exemptions, and physicians, truck drivers, all sorts of different people, which kind of meant also that the lockdown was never really a lockdown. There were a lot of exemptions, but it was a very strange time. It felt wrong. It felt like, I think it was the most intense disruption of the relationship between Windsor and Detroit that people had experienced here since 9/11, which was before I moved here. Right. But before 9/11, it was people would cross back and forth without, having to even show passports. And now that's definitely not the case. And then the COVID was another huge disruption that really changed the day-to-day character of people's lives. Yeah.
Right. So talk to us about, because you just finished producing an 8 episode series called Upstaged.
Yeah. So we were established, Post-Productions was always meant to be sort of a multimedia, multi-art company, but one that would grow over time. So we started with live theater because that's our first love. So we're an independent regional theater company, and we focus on producing, I don't know, some people call them edgy. I don't like that word. Risky plays, controversial sorts of plays. We go for emotional intensity. So we've done a lot of dramas, but another kind of emotional intensity is comedy. So we've always had a love for comedy as well. And the idea was to expand over time and broaden what we did. And so we started experimenting with that by incorporating short films, both live action and animated, into a production in 2019, so that they would be broadcast on stage while the action was going on stage. And now we're shooting this 8-episode comedy series, which has, after tonight, 2 more days of filming. It wraps up on Saturday night, the 31st, and we've been
Okay.
shooting for 11 weeks, 8 episodes. What is it? 180 something scenes, 290 confessionals, 60 plus artists from the region working on it. It was an enormous, ambitious undertaking, and we were told by many people that it was impossible and it would never happen. But we're finishing. Actually, the reason my partner Lynn couldn't be here is that she's directing a scene right now, and yeah, we're actually on schedule and under budget. So yeah, we're in a
That's
good place.
always good. Okay.
Yeah. How often does that happen,
Yeah.
right?
I know.
On schedule and under budget. Come on, like that's something to celebrate
Yeah.
right there. So then we go into post production. We edit everything, mix, color grading, all of that, and then we're hoping to have it out as soon as possible. It's hard to know when that will be, but we're in talks with a distributor right now, and are looking at where we can make it available to people.
Right. So, talk to us a little bit about Upstage. What's the synopsis of the series?
So the the series is about a regional independent theater company named Post Productions, coincidentally, that operates a small black box theater called the Shadowbox Theatre. Coincidentally, we also own one. And two of the characters are named Michael and Faye, and they're fictionalized version of my partner and I, fictionalized versions. And it's about the day-to-day struggles of being an artist outside the major markets, right? So in Canada, that would be Toronto, Montreal, Vancouver. In the United States, like New York, Chicago, LA. Maybe these days, I don't know, Houston, Austin. There seems to be a lot going on in Atlanta. Anyway, um, which is most theater. Most theater, it takes place outside of those major markets, and most theater companies don't exist in those places. They exist in these little places, and there are the community theater companies that are they're out there for volunteers to give them a chance to dip their toes into the arts and make friends and so forth. And they're volunteer based and amateur in nature and in purpose. And then there are the independent regionals, which are businesses trying to make money, employing professionals, and trying to maintain professional standards and so forth that the world doesn't know much about. When the world thinks of theater, it thinks of Broadway, it thinks of these giant productions, millions of dollars, in terms of their budgets and all these different things. And that's not what most theater is. And most people, even who come to see theater, don't really know what goes on behind the scenes. And okay, maybe they don't want to know. Maybe they'd find it boring. But a lot of it is hilarious and ridiculous, and our lives are ridiculous. And we wanted to sort of pull the curtain back on just the ridiculous nature of what we do and what it's like to survive on basically a shoestring budget, hoping to not only make a profit, but at least break even, and trying to maintain momentum and continue on, because you're driven to create. And that's something I think a lot of people can relate to, outside of theater, certainly in other arts and so forth. But you feel a need to create, and so you are willing to endure a lot of things just so you can indulge that desire, and satisfy that desire. And they're artists, right? So they're quirky people. We attract independent people, odd people, people who don't fit into the mainstream, my kind of people. And let's play with that. Let's play with the kinds of people that we interact with, and the weird inclusivity that theater can sometimes showcase, which I think is still not as inclusive as it should be, but more inclusive than most other industries, I think. So we
Right.
really do focus on things like representing people of all different, races and ethnicities and body types and genders and all of that, and also ability and disability. So I'm blind. My left eye is fake. I don't know if it's obvious because it's red and full of glitter, and my right eye doesn't work. And I also have two prosthetic legs, and so we bring in disability there too, and try to show that what brings in this world, what brings people together, has nothing to do with whether or not we fit into various ideas of normal, or whether or not
Mm.
we are marked out in some ways different, but that we all are driven to create and bring something cool to people so they can experience something new that's going to affect them emotionally and get them thinking.
Right.
That's the
So
It's funny.
yeah. So theater is timeless. Theater has been around for literally thousands of years. Um,
Yeah.
as somebody that is like in production and being a part of this, and is how has your company adjusted and evolved in the age of the internet and TikTok now?
Yeah. Well, I don't know. If you read like theater history, as I'm sure everyone does, uh, there's been many points where people predicted the death of theater, right? So when Grand Guignol started to die out, which was a horror genre that was all the rage for several decades in France, and the only other country in which it had any success whatsoever, though it was minor, was Canada. But it was really, I mean, hardcore horror, body horror, psychological horror, and so forth. That started to die out in the early 20th century, and people said it maybe mark the death of theater because of reactions to the world wars, right? And that people had had enough real horror, and that was going to kill horror. But then radio was going to kill horror, and theater, and then television was going to kill theater, and then the internet was going to kill theater. Even films, for a long time, people thought films were killing theater. And so far, all of these things haven't succeeded. They have, I think, made theater less ubiquitous. They've made it a smaller feature of the culture, but that's okay. Um, Theater does different things than all of those other media, and they do their things, and you know it's surviving the internet so far. And one way to do it is to adapt to the internet and use it as well as you can, to promote and reach new audiences and give people a taste of what they could be experiencing live. Because if you've ever, I'm a huge music person as well. If you've ever been to a concert, there's no comparison between a good concert and listening to something on your phone. Like, there's just no comparison. They're completely
Right.
different kinds of experiences, which doesn't mean I won't watch things or listen to things on my phone. I totally do all the time, or in the car or wherever. But I would rather be at a concert. I'd rather experience that intensity of live music and that feeling of communion that you get with the people around you when everything clicks. Um, and that's one of the things that live theater can accomplish that other media just can't, even if it's things like live streams, or things that are done through Zoom and so forth. It's still not live. It's not the same thing as live. And during the pandemic, there were a lot of attempts to use things like Zoom and so forth, or to offer uh, you know tickets to broadcasts of plays and things like that. We watched a few from England. They
Mm.
were cool, but not as good as live theater, because that's not the
Right.
medium it's made for. And then, but COVID, honestly, it killed a lot of the theater companies in our area. We had, before the pandemic, in Windsor, and I don't know about Detroit, but in Windsor, we had 26 theater companies before the pandemic, and I believe 9 or 10 of those are dead now. And a lot of some venues closed. And we were almost ended by the pandemic. And then the pandemic, I don't know if this is happening where you are, but the pandemic ended, and then everyone started doubling rents. And that, combined with all the other kinds of inflation, drove a lot of the companies that had survived the pandemic out of business. So it's not a great time. The pandemic was rough because, for a lot of businesses, restaurants and bars and so forth as well, that depend on getting people together physically in the same space, those weren't good times. And theater was in that situation as well. But we made it through. We made it through.
Right.
And I think we offer now is what we still offered before the pandemic, which is that ability to experience human beings sucking you into their world. That you're not in a good theater space, in a good performance. You're not voyeuristically watching the way you are with film or television. That you're being sort of sucked into that story as though you're in it with them, and you feel the real breath and the sweat and everything around you, and the breathing of the people around you. And when other people around you react, and the audience feeds off the actors feed off the audience. That's something that we can still offer, and thankfully are. However, I would say too, something that we've noticed is that, I mean, the audiences are growing again. Immediately after the pandemic, our audiences were down substantially. A lot of people were still afraid to go out, and some people still are. But there has been steady growth, but we're still nowhere near like February 2020 levels of audiences. And I think a lot of that is habituation. I think, and I was one of those people, we got into the habit of not leaving our houses for entertainment.
Well, hey there. If you're enjoying our podcast, don't forget to subscribe on YouTube or leave us a 5-star review on your favorite podcast platform. Your support means the world to us and helps us keep this show going. We love hearing from you, so any feedback is welcome. And thank you for being a part of our podcast family and for all your support. It truly means a lot to us. Is your company, would you say, is a theater troupe that has adjusted to an online medium, or are you a production company that is utilizing theater as part of its vocabulary?
I think the latter is closer. Yeah. A production
Okay.
company with a history of producing live theater. And, we've also produced 2 albums. And now we've got this television series that we filmed, and we also have invested in and support as producers other short films and things like that are made in the area. And next year we're hoping to get into publishing and boutique publishing of independent plays that otherwise aren't getting attention from the only 2 play publishers that are left, because like all other media, they've been snapped up by conglomerates. Like the world of play publishing is very similar to film and television now, where like it's owned by Disney or 2 other companies, right? So we're trying to break free of that. We're independent people. We sort of reject corporate culture. We reject mainstream culture. We find it vacuous. And we're always trying to find ways to sneak around it or subvert it.
When you guys put together, say for instance, Upstage, the series, did you and Faye already have an entire script written out and is like, this is it? Or did you also have to, did you get it tweaked once you kind of had the actors in place? Or, I guess how fluid was a script when you from when you actually put it together and then the final product?
Yeah, well, Faye and I and our partner Joey Ouellette, who owns another theater company that works out of our venue called Purple Theater Company, we got together as a bubble. We were allowed to have our little bubbles during the pandemic. I think we started at the beginning of June 2021 to write. And partly it was because we couldn't produce plays at that time, and we were bored, and we needed a creative outlet. And we've been talking for a while about the ideas behind this series with some other people too, basing them on our own experiences and stuff. So we got together, we created a writer's room. We looked at different writer's room models that are used in TV, and sort of chose one that we could adapt to our preferences. and we started writing. And we spent June, July, August, September writing these scripts. So we wrote, I think we got through at least 5 drafts of all 8 episodes of the series by the end of September. And and then it was just a matter of, okay, when can we do this? And we weren't even sure we could ever do it. We weren't even sure that our company would still exist in a month because we weren't making any money. And But we thought, hey, we like it actually. And for me, it's a really odd experience. I mean, I've written a lot, and I almost always hate what I write, and I refuse to look at it, or read it, or hear it, or anything after it's out. But we actually liked this, probably because Faye and Joey contributed to it. And these scripts were then sort of periodically, Faye and I would go back and revise and refine the scripts as life went along for the next couple of years. And then an opportunity, a little window of time arose this summer to actually do it. And we decided to jump on that and fully commit. And I like having a good, well written, well structured script in my hands, and I like other people to have it as well. But we're always open to what actors bring, and a character's never they never quite exist until an actor is on board and they add their own ideas and interpretations and so forth. And that's when the characters really come to life and you find out who they actually are. And then, so as you go through that process and you're working with the actors, new ideas will just come, right? They'll come up with ideas, you'll come up with ideas. And so there are always changes made as we go through that process. Even when it's new plays, we go through the same thing with new plays. And so I think our cast has contributed quite a lot to the development of the scenes as we've been going through them, and we encourage ad-libbing and improv by those who are good at it, um, and we try to get multiple sort of not only multiple takes, obviously multiple takes, but multiple versions of scenes that give us options that we'll be able to choose from in post-production.
Right. Now, so Michael, if people want to help, donate to this, to the filming of this, is there a way that people could say, "Hey, this sounds amazing. I want to help out"? Is there something that people could do for this?
Yeah. So right now we have a nonprofit fundraising campaign going, thanks to our partners, the Film Center here in Windsor. Canadians can donate to that, but only Canadians, unfortunately, through a button on our
Okay.
website, which is www.upstageseries.com. But anyone from other locales in the world can make contributions via well, there are various ways of electronic transfer now, check, money order, anything like that, by contacting us over email, and we can make arrangements
Okay.
to accept those. And our email address is postproductionswindsor@gmail.com.
Okay.
And we're happy. We've heard from a lot of people in other countries, including the U.S., Germany, um, the UK. There was an Asian country that I can't remember, but it's cool that I don't even know how these people found out, but people are finding out about it and wanting to help, which is really awesome. So yeah, we would love that, and we would love the opportunity to also just connect with people who are interested in this and who want to support it as well. Um, yeah, there's no reason to turn that down. And one of the things that we can do as a theater company, right, in this age, is to use the internet and all of the different means that it provides of connecting with people and communicating and all of that, which we've been trying to do since the company was founded.
The tagline on it is an 8-episode mockumentary-style comedy series about the trials and tribulations of an independent regional theater company.
Yeah, yeah. So there's an episode, for instance, to give you an idea of like the kind of behind the scenes stuff. There's an episode where Faye, the fictional version of Faye, while driving, spots an abandoned couch on the side of a street, and immediately immediately covets that. Because when you're an independent regional company like ours, that's gold, man. An abandoned couch, ooh, it's in good shape. It doesn't smell. It doesn't have huge stains or tears. Oh man. So she wants that right away. But another theater company spots it as well, and a bit of a battle begins to brew between the companies over this discarded couch that normal people didn't want. And that's the kind of thing that drives our episodes.
I know exactly what you're talking about. I remember in art school, there was this beautiful orange and yellow couch that was next to the dumpster, and I was in art school. I'm like, it was in the, I sat on it, and it was the most comfortable couch I've ever sat on. And I
Right?
had that all year long. Yeah, man, it was
That's
the
awesome.
best.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, anyone who not only is an artist, and most artists uh, must live frugally, or people who are just low income, um, we can all relate to this idea of creating lives out of what's available to us rather than expecting to be able to pick and choose from anything that's in the world. Uh,
Right.
to create our lives from. The material is whatever's present, not necessarily whatever we desire. And I think that transcends theater.
So yeah, Michael, you and Faye are gonna have to come back on again. This has been a great
I'd love to.
conversation, and look forward to talking to you guys again.
And thanks very much for having me on. It's really interesting. Good questions.
Yeah, you're welcome. And I tell you, you guys. So that Tim Hortons still have that sour cream glazed donut?
Some of the locations do. It's one of our favorites, but they phased out a lot of their baked goods for things like pizza that nobody goes to Tim Hortons for.
What?
And then the baked goods they don't even really make there anymore. But it depends on where you go. Sometimes you can still get the sour cream glazed.
Yeah, those are amazing, man. Yeah, I can't.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you'll
I
go there
love
and you'll
those.
be like, "Hey, can I have a sour cream glaze?" And you're like, "No." Do you want pizza? No. Why I'm not coming here because why would I come here if I wanted pizza?
Why would I drink coffee and pizza? You have
Yeah,
coffee and a donut. That's how it works.
yeah. Come on.